Hey, good evening, YouTube and Facebook FFBE Global Group. It's Ask an Old Mog time, and this week I've got something cooked up that I think is, interesting and important to talk about, especially with the coming of a new unit, Divine Beast Chow, because it's changed the way we kind of think about certain types of attacks in the game. And I've definitely seen some questions about, this kind of attack or this kind of attack, and what kind of killers do I need to use. And sometimes it's easy to figure out and it makes a lot of sense, and other times it's not as easy to figure out and doesn't make a lot of sense. But I'm going to show you how in the game you can actually see for yourself, what type of killers you want to use, and how to know, how to best equip your team to make sure you're doing the most damage possible. But to do that, we are going to kind of talk a little bit about the different kinds of attacks that exist in the game to kind of set the stage. So let's get into it. The first thing I want to kind of talk about is that there are different types of attacks in the game. So there's 4 different types of attacks that you can see. Only 2 of them are really going to get the benefit of a killer bonus. Well, that's not true. 3 of them really do, but only 2 of them kind of like jump out and make sense. So physical attacks are going to show up as blue when you use them on the enemy, and they benefit from physical killers. And magical attacks, they're going to show up as red when you use them on the enemy, and they get the benefit of magical killers. There are 2 other types of attacks, like I said. Hybrids, they show up as purple. They count as physical attacks when you are using them. So you always want to equip physical killers to hybrid damage dealers. And evocation attacks, those show up as white. They don't get the benefits of killer bonuses at all. Instead, they get the benefit of Evomag skills and evocation boosts. So those work a little bit differently. So you don't have to worry about killers for those, which is kind of nice when you're including a capper that happens to be an evocation dealer, because you can save on different types of material. We'll talk more about that in just a moment. But the important ones we're going to be talking about primarily are physical and magical, because those are the ones that kind of come up the most right now. So let's look at some examples. Physical attacks, they get the benefit of a killer bonus from physical abilities, and unless those attacks are locked to an element naturally, they can also be imbued with an element from another source, or get the benefit of an elemental weapon. And usually, not always, but usually, these are going to be based on your attack stat. So we're going to look at Titus as an example of this. So I'm going to go here into Titus. I need to scroll over to the units that I have set up for this. Here's Titus, and if you look at his super limit burst, for example, True Blitz Ace, if you click on it, we see, if we scroll down, it is a physical type, right? Physical type ability. It's attack based physical damage, and it tells you what it is, and you can see that it's not locked to an element. So what that means is, if you put, for example, a water weapon on Titus, which is his STMR, then this now becomes a physical type attack based physical damage water ability, right? And it benefits from water amps, water imperils, whatever. Physical type attacks tend to be very flexible, which is, one of the downsides to them. They tend to be a little weaker because they're flexible, but in Titus's case, this is still a very strong ability, especially once you start applying imperils and killers, and Titus is really easy to gear for that. So physical attacks, non-elemental unless stated otherwise, they can benefit from an imperil or an elemental weapon, and this is a good thing. Physical type, okay? The next one we're going to look at is magical. So magical attacks get the benefit of magical killer bonus abilities, and they are locked to whatever element the game decides that they are locked to. They usually are based on the magic stat, but not always, which we're going to see in just a moment. So we're going to look at Tiana, for example. All right, so Tiana, experimental mixture here. This is the limit burst. If we scroll down, we see it is a magic type, right? So it benefits from magic killers, and it does magic-based magic damage. So magical type based on your magic stat, and it's locked to fire, lightning, water, wind, and earth, which is kind of goofy, but that's how Tiana works. So if I equip, say, a dark element weapon on her, she does not care, because it does not, as the magic type, it does not get the benefit of the weapon type. If I imbue her with an element, it does not give the benefit because it is magic type. Magic attacks are always locked to whatever element they are. And I believe there are, at some point, No, I don't think there are any non-elemental magic type attacks that you can just like use in the game right now. I think most mage types are locked to an element, but not all of them. And we're gonna look at one in just a second that is not, but that's because there are exceptions to the rule. So that's those are the two most common sense ones, right? Physical attack, attack stat, magical attack, magic stat. But not always that easy. Let's look at some exceptions. Sometimes an attack is going to be based on a physical type or a magical type, but is based on a different stat. So Yoshikiri is a great example. All right, if we go and look at his Killer Arts Limit Burst, scroll down here, it is a physical type, spirit-based magic damage. Okay, whoa, right? Physical type magic damage. Tell me why that makes sense. But there it is. So it is physical type, which means he can use an elemental weapon. He can get the benefits of an elemental imbue. It also means he needs physical type killers. But his damage is based on his spirit stat and counts as magic damage when it comes to how the enemy deals with it. So if they need to have broken spirit, and they need to be somehow resistant or not resistant to magic damage. So sometimes enemies put up magic mitigation or physical mitigation. That matters here. So, but the nice thing about Yoshikiri, like I said, he can be given an elemental weapon, or he can use his own elemental imbue skills that he's really good at. And he does magic based on his spirit. So you want to build him with really high spirit, physical killers, and let him use imbues. Okay? Makes sense, right? Physical type, spirit based, magical damage. Okay. Very good. So, next example, Divine Beast Chao. This is the one that raises some eyebrows, right? Because most types of spirit-based magic damage in the game are physical type. Most types. Until we get Chao. Celestial Rebuke. Scroll all the way down here. Magic type. Spirit-based magic damage. So it's spirit-based magic damage just like Yoshikiri, but it's magic type. So what does that mean? He's locked to an element. It does not matter what element weapon he's equipped with. It does not matter what element you imbue him with. The only thing that matters are amplifies, because this is locked to light element. And he has to use magical type killers. So rather than physical like Yoshikiri, even though they are both spirit-based magic damage, physical for Yoshikiri, magical type for Divine Beast Chao. Very confusing, right? Chao breaks the mold in this way, and in other ways too. If you're even considering getting Chao and you have the Lapis, Chao's pretty rad. I'm enjoying Chao a lot, and if you want to talk more about that, like, yeah, we can talk about Chao in another video. But like, yeah, super good, better than I thought. But we're not done with the exceptions. So Angela is the other exception that I want to talk about. She kind of blends it all together. We'll go to stats here. Angela. True Ancient Curse. Okay. Physical type, magic-based magic damage, right? Physical type, what does that mean? She can be given an elemental weapon. She can be given a elemental imbue. And she needs high magic stats because it's magic-based magic damage. So she kind of makes sense in that she's a mage, right? So she does magic-based magic damage, but she's physical type, so she needs physical killers. And you can do imbues. And since she's not element locked and it's physical type, you can make her whatever element you want, which is a big reason why Angela is so good. Not only does her limit burst stack up a lot to do tons and tons of damage over several turns, but you can really use her in pretty much any team because you can make her whatever element you want. But there you go. So these are the types of exceptions. So it's really important when you're looking at a unit and trying to decide, how do I want to gear them? You need to go into their abilities. We can do this with other abilities too, not just limit bursts. If you go into, for example, special here, and I say, hot shot. Okay, it's magic type, magic base damage. Why is that important? Because the killers do not apply. Physical killers do not apply to magic type. So if you're going to be using hot shot to do the primary damage, which you really shouldn't be for Angela, this is just kind of a chaining ability that's going to support and boost her up. If you're going to be focusing on chaining, you need magic type killers. If you're focusing on her limit burst, you need physical type killers. Very important. If you don't put the right type on, you're going to do less damage. Magic type, right? Locked to an element. can't get the benefit of imbue, so you're only doing fire-based chaining with this. Magic fire-based chaining. Based on her magic stat, so it's important to have her magic stat high. My Angela's not wearing any equipment right now, so she's got relatively low. But if I was, you'd build her with high magic. And high limit burst damage and physical killers. Because that's the best way to build her. So, what does this mean, right? What does this mean in terms of like how you're going to be building your team and how you're going to be gearing your team? And for that, we have a special visitor coming back because he was dry when I went to go get him. And that is Sharky. So Sharky's going to come on out. Sharky, say hello. Hey, everybody. Sharky has some suggestions for us today. Okay. Pay attention to the types of attacks you plan to use when you're building your team to ensure you have enough killer materia of different types to max out the bonus. Use different types, if you can, to make sure you have enough to go around. Thank you very much, Sharky. What does this mean? This means, okay, that if you're going to be focusing on your main damage dealer being a physical type, you don't have very many killer materias or abilities, for a certain race that are physical, maybe you want to use magic killers or magic based chainers for your support chain, because then they can put on the magic based killers instead of the physical ones. If you don't have a whole lot of killers for a certain race, you don't want to load up too much on physical ones or magical ones based on what you have. So you gotta kind of be flexible. The important thing, usually is just putting all your good stuff, your good boosts on the main DPS, the main capper. So Titus is a good example, Angela's a good example, and then let Yoshikiri and Tiana, let them have the leftover gear, basically, because they're just gonna be doing bonus damage, little support chaining and stuff like that. Let your main chainer your main capper get the benefit of all your best gear. Make sure you max them out first, because you're leaning into them for the damage. And not your chainers. Chainers matter, right? They're chipping in the damage, but it matters less than your main attacker. And with that, Sharky's pretty much done talking, and I'm actually pretty much done talking about this too. So if I've missed something, if you've got examples of really good other units that maybe break the mold in terms of, are they like one type but they use different type of stats, if you've got other examples of situations that are exceptions to the rule that you think are useful to know for newer players, drop a comment. I'd love to see it. Let's put together some other combinations of examples of units that are going to do what we're talking about here. What are your favorite units to use killers on? What are your favorite hybrid units to kind of focus on? We didn't talk a lot about hybrids, but they do use physical killers, which is important to pay attention to. That's pretty much it. So make sure you tune in next week and have a good week and be safe out there. Have fun crushing the Great Neon Beast, Nyan Beast. I don't know how to pronounce it. In Clash of Wills, and hope you're having a good time out there. Be safe. Bye-bye.